And here we are, everybody. It's a great Monday morning. Empowered Soul Network coming to you live in Facebook streaming. I have the privilege and honor of interviewing a gentleman that goes by the name Shambhu, and he can share with you the meanings of that. He is the founder of the Light of Heart practice and the author of Sacred Repose, Abiding in Bliss and Freedom. Shambhu, welcome. Glad to have you here today.
Glad to be here, Paul. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Yes, so let's dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, but in particular, what are you passionate about lately? What's really coming from the heart lately these days?
Well, my webpage, The Light of the Heart, captures it all. It's about the light and it's about the heart. And for me, the first experience of the light was in my early teens. I grew up in Bulgaria. As you can tell, I have a strange, exotic accent from somewhere else. Um, and I had a near-death experience where I had a direct experience of the light. And it's interesting, Paul, because a lot of people experience all kinds of forms, whether it's people who have passed or some other, experience, or they're being greeted on the other side. In my case, there was none of that. It was just like pure presence of the light, and it wasn't that light is somewhere in a galaxy far, far away. You have to go through a wormhole to get there. But literally, and that's only over the last several weeks that I've been begun to make sense of it. When something like this happens in your early teens, when you're relatively mature emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it takes a while for that experience to percolate through the various layers of the complexity of the human complexity. And the realization has been recently that really we're not going anywhere when we shed the body. It's about we fold back into the light where we came from. And that light, out of its grace and love for us, that birthed us out of love, will show us whatever we need to see. If we need to feel comfortable to shed the body, and we need company, and they'll show us and bring the people who we were familiar with, who have already passed on, parents, grandparents, etc., or friends, to meet us on the great, to greet us on the other side, right? For me, the light did not have a welcoming party. It was just the light itself. And interesting enough, Paul, over the years, I tried different spiritual practices, and the one that knocked me out, it's interesting, in my mid to late 20s, I was in between jobs. So I was an investment banker in New York City and moving on to be an investment banker in London, UK. And I had several months off. I went down to the US Virgin Islands, one of the islands, beautiful islands, St. Croix. And I met a person there who basically introduced me to spirituality. She introduced me to meditation. And I was spending some time with her, and she liked listening to satsangs, chanting music, spiritual music. And she played Om Namah Shivaya by Krishna Das. Within a few seconds, the resonance and the power of the chant literally knocked me out. I fell on the floor. I lay down on the floor, spread my limbs, and allowed the chant to work me. I mean, it wasn't even allowing, it was like immediate surrender. And that resonance of Shiva. And funnily enough, years later, my teacher who asked me to become a spiritual teacher, and I took the initiation ceremony in India 7 8 years back, and he gave me the name Acharya Shambhu. Shambhu is one of the names of Shiva. Shiva, of course, meaning consciousness in the Hindu tradition. And Shambhu is the benevolent form of Shiva, which kind of matches my personality because the second part of the light of the heart is the heart. And it's been over the years that me being a very intellectual person, like I like reading, I studied logic, all of that, but that never got me very far from spiritual perspective. And I got attracted to a spiritual practice that focuses on the heart. And it's the realization that the teacher of my teacher used to have a saying: take your mind and stick it in your heart. And it's a very simple yet powerful advice, and frankly, very effective advice, because that light that showed itself to me, out of its freedom, decided to create the human mind. And the human mind has the ability to create a circus, can go in all kinds of direction. It's a chameleon. It can camouflage itself in so many ways, whether obvious ways or less obvious ways, and very subtle ways, including ways where it pretends it's the heart, but actually it's not. It would hold on to the lightest sense of separation between you and that light and pretend it's the heart. So it's that calibrating that spectrum of extreme mind, which we could argue that's what humanity is going for right now, where up is down, left is right, and heart, that open heart, which is the heart of consciousness, which is the heart of the light of consciousness. So it's that journey of the light of the heart that captures the little name of my small meditation practice, that I chose. And the manifestation of all that work, trying to find the light within. And I think that's why the main reason that light, instead of taking me home in my early teens and shedding my body, and I felt a bliss. I felt at home in that light. I knew that this beautiful planet is not permanent home. And I really, really, really wanted to cross over. And the light clearly is much more intelligent than my mind. It has the big picture, unlike my little small mind. There was a reason it brought me back, and that reason is I have shitload of karma, excuse my language, to burn. Like many of us, really
Sure.
earth spirituality 101 of the universe. The teacher of my teacher, Swami Rudrananda, used to say that planet Earth is the insane asylum of the universe. And that is correct. There's 7 billion plus very mature souls, and we're here to learn from the mother, planet Earth, and from each other, mirroring each other.
Sure.
That's part of the reason you and I somehow got together and we're talking right now.
Right,
And
right, right.
it's that journey, that focusing on the light, focusing on the heart, that got me to a point where there was enough openness in me. Just the door was just a little bit ajar. That meditating here on the Hawaiian island of Kauai, where we moved 6 years ago, and it's been a life changer for me. Mother Kauai working you and bringing you from a place of this or that and confusion to just getting really still.
So,
And that manifests itself in my first book, which is called Sacred Repose, about abiding in bliss and freedom, which is all about stillness.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. You know, one of the things that you stimulated me to think about is, and I was reading this in your website, this balance of the spirituality in the physical world, having those human experiences, being at work, having the family, having the kids, and so on. So, first of all, was there a place where, as you look back on it now, that you were experiencing this world, the world of finance, New York, and so on, where there was the door, the threshold. You're over here experiencing this, and suddenly there's kind of this readiness to embrace the light and experience it. And the reason why I'm asking that is because so many people hope that they can have that or they want to awaken to that, but they're so caught in that physical experience and it's hard for them to connect. So is there any place for that you can identify that might help people to have hope that they can go there?
So in my tradition, which is called non-dual Shaivism or Shaktism, which is the power of that energy, Shakti, and actually 5 traditions within that. And the Bible of this tradition is called, there's a book, a scripture written by Abhinavagupta, more than a millennia ago called Tantra Loka, which means the light and on of the tantras. It's very interesting, Paul, because Tantra, I mentioned earlier, I'm Bulgarian. The old Bulgarians, they had God. They had a monotheistic religion, and their God was called Tangra, which is a cognate with Tantra, right? And actually, Tangra existed way before Tantra, from what I can tell so far. That's an area of research I'm doing. And because of the similarity in language between Sanskrit and Bulgarian, I can tell you that both Tangra and Tantra mean expansion. Tan refers to expansion, and gra, similar to grab in English, bringing back, right? So that light, there's the two movements. The one is expansion of that light as the universe, and then it's that folding back. And that folding back is not contraction, but that folding back is actually an expansion. So as we expand first, we forget, we become a little bit smaller, we pretend that we're smaller as part of the play of consciousness. And actually, when we fold back, we expand back into our original true innate nature. So that, to your question, that's very similar to, okay, I'm going to be spiritual, and how do I find spirituality during everyday life, during the mundaneness of life? And I struggled a lot with that in the beginning. In my sitting meditations, I would sit down, feel my chakras, the energy centers, move Kundalini up and down. And it was great. There was some sort of spiritual attainment, but it was limited to the meditation cushion. The minute I opened my eyes, boom, I would lose it, or I was able to keep it for 5 minutes, and then I would just lose it, go back to everyday life, and then, oh, I'm exhausted. I've lost my center. I need to recharge. I need to rejuvenate. Where is my meditation cushion, please? Where is it? Right. So it was that back and forth that I think a lot of us go through, and that's
That's exactly
totally
right. Yeah.
normal, right? And at some point, I'm sitting down, I'm having this spiritual experience, I'm moving energy up and down, and I had a feeling that I'm like one of those people in the circus that are juggling stuff, right? Okay, fine, I became good at juggling energy. So what? Right? Has that changed my consciousness? Has that expanded my consciousness? And that's the question each of us has to ask every day. Whatever we're doing, whether I'm sitting on a meditation cushion, and test the effectiveness of the practices. Give it a chance, give it a time. And if it doesn't work for you, fine, just move. That doesn't mean don't feel bad about that. Just move on to another practice, try something new, right? But you have to give it time. You can't just try it once. Because look, I mean, there is a big contingent in the spiritual community, at least from what I've seen. They're like spiritual bees. They jump from flower to flower very frequently, and that's their lifestyle, and they never go deep, right? Jump on a flower, give it a chance, give a practice a year, 6 months, until you're sure maybe it doesn't work for you, and then move on to another one. And it's very interesting. One of the texts in the non-dual Shaiva and Shakta tradition is called Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, where they give you 112 meditations. They didn't give you one, right? So they give you this whole menu, right? Spanning breath, intellect, imagination, using the senses, energy, Shakti, consciousness, chakra, all of that. It's a whole menu, and you just read it and you try it, and whatever works for you, right? And the important thing is, and then I give credit to a person who's not in the physical body anymore. His name is Swami Lakshmanju. He used to live in Srinagar, Kashmir. And he was the last direct descendant of the non-dual Shaivite and Shakta masters from Kashmir. And that tradition flourished between the 8th and the 13th century before the Muslim invasion in northern India. That stepped down in southern India, became Tripura Sundari, morphed a little bit. Some of it went in Tibet. Tibetan Buddhism has a lot of links with non-dual Kashmir Shaivism. And despite so many years of this destruction of that tradition, it ended up surviving even in Kashmir. So he talks about one of the secrets of his particular tradition, which is non-dual Shaivite and Shakta tradition, is yoga in action. And he would teach everybody, whether it's a beginner or a very advanced meditator, very advanced student, he would teach them a very simple practice. And you know what would he say, Paul? Watch your breath. with every breath. Just be conscious that your breath, I'm inhaling, there's a pause at the end of the inhale, I'm exhaling, there's a pause at the end of the exhale. It's very interesting because I started a workshop on the book that you mentioned, Sacred Repose, Body in Bliss and Freedom. We started this Saturday, and it's 12 Saturdays in a row. And we get together each Saturday for 2-3 hours. And it's a group of 43 of us that started the workshop on Saturday. And we streamed live from India a puja, a ceremony, what's called Shiva Ratri, which means the night of Shiva. And the night of Shiva is about the marriage and the union of Shiva and Shakti, the union of consciousness and energy. And that's, even modern science has been finding that out, that it's all interplay of energy and consciousness. And of course, modern science, they don't know how to measure consciousness, so they don't understand it, right? So that's an external ritual. It was like 1 hour ritual that we streamed live from Ganeshpur, India. But the internal experience of that union of consciousness and energy that Swami Lakshmana described, based on a text called Shiva Stotravali, hymns of praise of Shiva, hymns of praise of that unbounded consciousness, luminous consciousness that created all of this, that created this meeting between you and I, right? I mean, how is it even possible to have a light in a physical rotting body, right? I mean, just the endless creativity of that light, right? So the inner experience of Shivaratri, of that union of consciousness and its energy, he described very simply. Just watch your breath and notice with very simple awareness how in the 2 pauses of each breath cycle, the inhalation and the exhalation are equal. They cease. And also thoughts cease. The cessation in inhalation, exhalation, and thought in each of the pauses of the breath. So as we commit to diligently do that during the day, I'm talking to you, I'm watching my breath. I'm very present in myself. I have not lost my center, yet I'm talking. And it takes a little bit of practice to get to that place, but you can get there very fast. And that's the secret. It's yoga in action. So I do the same practice when I sit on my cushion. So over the last, I would say, 10 years, I embarked on my spiritual practice about 20 to 23 years ago in earnest. Over the last 10 years, gradually I've made a shift where there isn't a contrast between sitting down to meditate and just being in the world. And that begins to dissolve that sense of duality. There's me as a subject, and there's objects in my world, and these objects could be things or people, including in my own mind, right? They're objects in my own awareness. And that gap between me, the subject, and the objects of my awareness begins to diminish, and you begin to realize, oh, all of this is happening on one field of awareness. So all of these Kundalini practices, if you've been used to like moving energy up and down, left and right, all of that, that has to mature in the sense of expansion of consciousness. And I'll say one more thing on that topic and I'll shut up. So one area of research I've been doing is etymology of language. You take a word and you slice it down, and does it give you extra meaning? And what you discover pretty fast is that an ancient language, a very old language, when you slice and dice a word, you get a meaning that's spiritually profound, i.e., our ancestors, guided by the light, and having that intelligence, how to preserve those cosmic laws of love, balance, and harmony between Earth and the universe. They embedded spiritual teachings, the most important, including the most important ones, in the language, in the word itself. Bulgarian, which is my native language, happens to be a very old language. Whether it's before Sanskrit or after Sanskrit, that's a debate. My research has found out that actually it predates Sanskrit, and that Sanskrit might be based on a Proto-Slavic languages, actually, which is a crazy statement to make and pisses off a lot of people, but I don't care. So, because it's based on DNA studies, it's not based on some
Right.
science. DNA doesn't lie. A historian or whoever, they'll lie because they have an agenda based on who they're serving, right? But DNA does not lie. So you can track with DNA where the original father is, the original father and mother are, which is amazing science, which is a whole separate conversation. So in Bulgarian, the word for consciousness or awareness is сознание. When you break it down, сознание means literally with knowledge. So my ancestors, out of the goodness of their heart, gave me this amazing teaching, embedded my own language that I did not grow up. I mean, nobody taught me these things. That consciousness means with knowledge. It's right itself in the word. And actually,
Beautiful.
in Sanskrit, there's a word for one of the many words for consciousness is samvit. Vit means knowledge, right? In Latin, including, right? So samvit literally means with knowledge as well. So there's some correspondence there. So сознание, level one means with knowledge. Now the question is, natural question is, what knowledge are we talking about? Come on, dudes, right? You told me it's consciousness is knowledge, but what knowledge we're talking about? Well, they were so amazing and so in tune that when you break down the word in another level, s us means with me. You take your sense of I, na nie, to us. So you take a sense of a view of me and you expand it to a sense of us. So it's that expansion of consciousness that is this knowledge, which is awareness and consciousness. That's what the game is about. It's about the expansion of consciousness from the limited I to the sense of oneness and unity, which my ancestors just ingeniously embedded in one word. How,
Beautiful.
how amazing, Paul, that is, right? So
Beautiful. Yeah.
on and on and on, you can go down the list, right?
Yeah.
That's a fun area of focus for me. To contrast and compare Bulgarian and Sanskrit, and just blows my mind. And one other tip I would leave practitioners with, whatever language you were born with. In my case, sometimes I would, speak to myself in English, sometimes in Sanskrit. And recently I switched to Bulgarian only in my inner talk, in my mantras, including my mantras. I do Sanskrit mantras, but I've also started doing in Bulgarian. When I say aham or in Sanskrit, aham means I am. I am in English. When I say asam in Bulgarian, I inhale, and my mantra is as, exhale, sam, I am in Bulgarian. The resonance within me is way deeper than Sanskrit or English. So whatever works for you, experiment, because there's a reason you were born where you were born.
Right. Right. Beautiful. Well, hey, this is just an amazing conversation. Amazing conversation. As we wrap up here, just remember, folks, take that breath. Take the meditation cushion into your cubicle at work, into the office at work, into the school where the kids are, right? Shambhu, how can people get in touch with you and connect more deeply on what you're talking about?
People have hard time remembering my spiritual name. That's why, it's really easy. Thelightoftheheart.com. Everything
There you go.
is there.
Good, beautiful, and make sure that when you see this video on Empowered Soul Network, put that in the comments underneath so people can find that. I'll make sure we reference it
I
too.
will do
Stick
that.
around for just a minute afterwards, and we'll finish chatting a little bit. Everybody, thank you so much for being on Empowered Soul Network. Shambhu, thank you so much for being our guest today. Love and light all the way over there into Hawaii, and we will chat soon. Have a great day, everyone.
Blessings, everybody.